I should start this off with some background. I'm a male, 19 years old, so I'm quite independent, and I'd say reasonably strong, and not scared too easily. But this event has to be the most terrifying moment of my entire life. Just writing it out turns my stomach. I live in the United Kingdom, in a small village. I'm not going to say where it is exactly, for personal reasons, but let's just say everyone knows each other around here. My girlfriend lives in the same village. I'm going to call her Jen, and I'd say I'm around her place about 99% of the time. We do spend a lot of time together. One day, Jen and I were sitting in her living room. Her house is 3 stories, and the attic is on the top floor. Her living room is on the first floor. As we were watching one of her TV shows, Gossip Girl or something like that, I started hearing banging up around the ceiling. I knew there was no one else that could have possibly been in the house, so I just shrugged it off as the wind, or maybe creaky floorboards. Had to be some kind of logical explanation. I thought that to at least stop me from freaking out. After about 10 minutes, I heard walking around, and I'm talking human footsteps. I never thought that I would be able to tell the differences between house noises and human footsteps so distinctly. But this time, I was completely sure that these noises was a person walking around upstairs. Jen looked at me in confusion. I asked calmly, "Is there anyone else here?" And she said, "Why would someone be in here?" In a cracked and on the verge of crying voice. My heart sunk to the bottom of my stomach. My palms were sweaty, and I built up what was left of my courage. And I shouted, "Hey!" And the noises stopped. They just stopped. Now I was panicking. My jaw was clenched together, but I needed to check this out. For Jen, or maybe just for my own curiosity. Now, me being the fighting type, I went upstairs to check, and there was nothing there. I looked everywhere that was possible, apart from the attic, because no one has ever gone into the attic. The door has been constantly jammed shut. I mean, the handle would turn, but it just would never open. So we left it. I brushed it off, and we figured that it just must have been the wind. A couple of months later, the noises were still happening, almost every day and every night, only when we were on the bottom floor. We always checked and never found anything. We stopped checking the attic because we knew it was pointless, and you just couldn't get in. But one night, we were sick of the noises. We hadn't heard the footsteps in a while, just banging. So we said to each other, the next time we hear a noise, we're going to run up as fast as possible to see if anything's there. A couple of days passed, and nothing. We kept a knife in the bedroom, just in case. When we were just about ready to turn in and turn off the TV, it was around 4 a.m. on a Sunday night. Then we heard thud, thud, thud. I swear someone was running. So I grabbed a knife. I ran as fast as I possibly could to get to the stairs to the 3rd floor. And I heard a bang in the attic. So I quickly jumped on the bed, turned the handle, pushed the door, obviously thinking it was going to be shut. But it wasn't. It opened. So I stuck my head up, and you wouldn't believe. You had to be there to understand the fright of seeing 3 people in the attic. There were food packets everywhere, and I shouted, "Who the hell are you? What are you doing here?" There was no reply. And I exclaimed again, "I have a gun." Obviously, I didn't have a gun. I just said that to try to scare them. And all I could remember seeing was this big knife, more like a big sword. It was so massive. So I slammed the door shut and I ran outside with Jen. We locked the door and rang the police. And in all honesty, they showed up within 10 minutes, much quicker than I thought they would. They went in the house and searched. The back door was wide open when they went in. The police went upstairs and checked the attic, but all 3 of those people were gone. I was so happy that this was finished, but what they found in the attic was very disturbing. They had my girlfriend's pants and her bras, and they were covered with dried white substance. I never found out if any of them ever got caught. But I do know the police took the pants and a bra in for evidence. Nothing has happened since. It's been about a year. I'm just so happy that nothing ever happened to either of us. The scariest thing of all, though, is who knows what they were doing when we were asleep. For a little bit of context, I was a 14-year-old girl when this happened. It was Saturday night. My aunt, mother, and myself were in our backyard pool. It was about 9:30 or so at night. We were just enjoying the warm weather and the clear sky, when suddenly my little dog started growling towards our front door, which was a bit far from where we were, but the way my house was built provided an echo, so that no matter where we were, my parents could hear me and my siblings and come to our aid if needed. This, though, wasn't the type of growl that she gave to people walking down the street. She's very territorial. No, this was a downright angry growl, the one she gave whenever she sensed something, or someone, was near the door and not leaving. We shrugged it off, thinking it was another animal or something of the sort. But around 11 o'clock at night, we had gotten out of the pool, and we were just talking and joking around on the sofa that's near our door when we heard banging on our metal fence. We have a fence and then a wooden door, not too far, that opens to the house. Naturally, we were freaked out, being 3 females alone in a house, without any sort of weapon close at hand to defend ourselves. The banging stopped, and soon after, we called it a night and went to bed. Me, not feeling sleepy at all, stayed up watching movies. About an hour and a half into my movie marathon, I heard it again, the banging noise. This, though, was followed by a pair of footsteps heading to the window. Now I was freaked out. I knew it would be hard to remove the bars from them, but I was not taking my chances. Instead, I ran up the stairs, carrying my now angry and barking dog, to my mom's room. I locked the door and told both my mom and aunt what was happening. In an instant, they called the police. As soon as sirens were heard in the distance, the banging stopped. We told the police what happened, and they patrolled the area for a while, but they saw no one. This person, whoever it was never caught. It still terrifies me when I'm home alone at night. Also, I need to add, what my mom failed to mention to me at that time, but told me later, was the police, while searching the street and our home, found a knife and some rope near our window. After I heard that, I have never been more terrified in my life.
This happened when I was about 10 or 11 years old. I lived in a fairly quiet suburban town in Australia. Crime rate was almost non-existent, so parents were pretty laid back about letting their kids play in the streets without supervision from time to time. While this was great for us, the kids, for other more sinister people, this was something that could easily be taken advantage of. One weekend, I'd convinced my parents to let me go home after school with a friend to stay over one Friday night. I regularly went to this person's house and I knew their parents quite well. Since they trusted me, it wasn't a problem letting us both play with the other kids on the street past 9 p.m. My friend's house was located at the back of a cul-de-sac or dead-end street. The kids from the neighbouring houses would regularly congregate at the end of the street at night to hang out. So tonight, we decided to join them. It was a usual thing we did when I was over. This night, since it was a weekend, there were a lot of us, maybe 6 or 7, and we decided to play 44 home, which is pretty much a game of tips with the end goal of getting to a designated area before you are tipped in order to be safe for that round. Well, shortly before starting the game, we were all deciding on where the safe zone should be. So as we started looking around for a suitable spot, my friend nudged me and told me to look down the end of the street. He had a puzzled look on his face, like he was seeing something unfamiliar. He asked me if I thought that tree at the end of the street kinda looked like a person. There was a substantial patch of bushland at the area he was pointing to, so it took me a while, but I eventually saw the tree stump he was pointing at. And yeah, he was right, it did look faintly like the silhouette of a person, but nothing to be alarmed about. It did look a lot more like a tree stump than a person, so we continued playing our game. We were playing the game for about 20 minutes, before some of the girls from the group complained that they were tired and wanted to sit down for a while, so we decided to have a break. As we were sitting on someone's lawn, I looked over at the stump. Weird. It looked a little bigger than before. With my bewildered look, the group asked me what I was looking at. Me and my friend both pointed out the stump and asked if anyone thought that it looked like a person. The girls in the group immediately thought we were trying to scare them. They were about a year or so younger than us, so scared easily. This led to a jumbled debate on whether the stump was a person or not. The majority had their doubts, and one of the boys said that they would walk up to the stump to prove once and for all that it is in fact a stump. Like a herd of penguins, we shuffled about 20 or so meters behind the boy as he approached the stump. When we got about 2/3 down the street, the boy ahead of us froze. One of the girls yelled out, asking why he had stopped. Silence. The kid then took one very slow step back. It was at that moment we turned our attention to the stump. My heart skipped a beat when I clearly saw the stump take a step towards us. From out of the trees, it was clearly not a tree stump. It was a man. No wonder we couldn't see him. He was wearing a black coat, black pants, and black shoes. We all froze in complete and utter fear. My heart was racing. It felt like the scene from a horror movie. He took another step closer, and we could see the outline of his face from the streetlight. His blank expression turned to a sinister smile, like he was about to pull off a heist. Finally, the boy in front of us kicked into gear and yelled for everyone to run. Understandably, we were all screaming for our lives. The girls' screams could have shattered windows as it made almost everyone come out of their houses. Luckily, once we were halfway up the street, a father of one of the kids came out to tell us we were being too loud. We swarmed to him, huffing and puffing, trying to form a coherent sentence on what had just transpired. We looked around for the man chasing us, but he was nowhere to be seen. Not a single indicator that he had even existed. Once we finally got the story out, we were all told to go back to our homes and to go to bed. Whenever we tried bringing up the story, we were shrugged off and told it was probably someone walking their dog or some other excuse. I suppose since we were so young, it highly factored into our credibility. And yes, blah blah blah, kids have imaginations. But in all honesty, I know what I saw, and it was completely compatible with everyone else's stories. The group stopped hanging out after that.
This one's not about me. It's about my sister. It took her a while to tell me the full story because she was so traumatized from this situation, which I can understand because if this happened to me, it had scared the living crap out of me. She was much younger than she is now. She's 16, and this happened when she was around 11. She was at her friend's house, and her friend's house is about a 5-minute walk from ours. So walking home alone wasn't a problem at all for her. At around 8 o'clock at night, she began to walk home. Her friend's house was at the top of a long street, more like a hill, and this occurred in the winter, so it was pitch black. No light, but the street lights, and lights from windows of other houses on either side of the street. She began to make her way along the pavement, down the hill, when she suddenly came to a stop. This part of the story gives me chills. She turned her head to see a man dressed in black with his hood up and staring at the concrete on the other side of the street. He was directly parallel to her. She told me that she wasn't scared that time. She was more alarmed at first when she saw him because she had noticed the guy when she first got onto the street. He just sort of appeared to her as she looked over. The surprise of another person made her stop impulsively. The man was completely stationary. He didn't talk, nor did he move. Like he didn't even know that she was there. Then, she said, some disgusting gloopy substance dripped loudly out of his mouth and smacked against the concrete. I get it. This seems unrealistic and something that you might see from a vampire movie or something. And you might argue that this was vomit or the guy just spit, but my sister made it undeniably clear that to her it looked like tar or thick blood or something that she didn't even want to imagine. She said it looked black, or at least dark, as far as she could tell in the night, and that her heart dropped into her stomach, and she began to worry deeply. She stared at the guy for a few seconds. She said it felt like minutes, until finally his neck began to turn in her direction, slowly, as if he had been waiting for her to get there. She didn't make a sound. She just watched. She said that she couldn't even get out a, "Hey, are you okay?" She was far too terrified to even move. The guy just stared at her, but she couldn't see his face. She couldn't make out a single feature, and she didn't care. She just wanted to get away from whoever that was, or whatever that was. She turned away from the man and began to walk down the path. As she was walking, she realized the man was following her, walking at the exact same pace, almost like a reflection in a mirror. She wanted to make sure before she made a break for it that the guy was in fact following her. So she stopped, again, quickly in her tracks, only to see that weirdo did the exact same thing at the exact same time. But he did not look at her, he just copied her. After seeing the man did in fact notice her, my sister began to sprint, as fast as she could, still turning her head right to see if the man was following her. Sure enough, he was running, but at the exact same pace right beside her. After running for about 20 seconds, she realized this guy could catch her. She closed her eyes and stopped again in her tracks. However, the man kept running. He went past her as if he could still see her running down the street, and then he started to speed up. She said that she never saw a human move that fast as that guy did running down that hill. She just stood still. She was in shock and fear. She began to cry and tears dripped down her cheeks. She said she was relieved that at least he wasn't so close to her anymore. She just stared and watched the man clear the entire street, she said, in the space of about 3 seconds. What scared her the most was the way that he mimicked her moves. She believes that this was a real skinwalker, learning human movements and the ways of interacting. But I don't believe in Native American legends. All I know is that it scared the hell out of her. So copycat in the black hoodie, let's not meet.